The unstable woman. At bachelorette parties, the wife would call her husband derogatory names. Take a look at the outcome. Take pleasure in the performance. My name is Jerry, and I was content with my life until recently. Betsy and I have been wed for over 28 years. Both of us are 55 years old, and we have a grown daughter named Amy who is wed to a decent man named Jim. They are expecting their first kid together and have been married for 3 years. A brief overview of Betsy's and my past. We dated after meeting in college. However, we were never really close despite the fact that we were both putting a lot of effort into our degrees. After we began dating, it appeared that we found we were a great match. We were married 18 months later, and we were fortunate to have Amy born 2 years later. She was intelligent and a great daughter. I work well, and so does Betsy. I work in a big company's finance department, and she has been a teacher for 25 years. We primarily work for the government, and I keep expenses under control and adhere to all regulations that apply to all government projects. I have been in business for 31 years and employ 4 people. My wife and 3 or 4 regular companions get together for dinner once a month, or maybe just meet at one of their residences during the summer months when she is not working. Most gatherings are merely an opportunity for them to enjoy themselves. They would occasionally visit a pub, enjoy some music, and dance if they were asked. Since my wife rarely arrives late or drinks excessively, I never asked what was going on. About 3 years ago, when Betsy and I became empty nesters, it all began. I believed that as we grew older, we could revive our romance a bit because we both adored our kid. We still go out to supper at least once a week, sometimes by ourselves and other times with another couple, even though we are not as active as we once were. I believed, at least, that we were happy and pleased in our relationship. That evening, I went home after having lunch with my friend Harold. Occasionally, when the spouses get together, he and I share a meal. I parked on the corner and walked home after seeing automobiles on my way home after finishing. I assumed they had a few bottles of wine because I heard loud laughter as I entered the side door that led to the back patio. I chuckled as Betsy's best friend Stephanie expressed her love for her husband Sam, who was elderly, obese, and hardly able to stand. She claimed that she has a nice toy and can have fun without having to treat her husband, but occasionally she just wants a little affection. She went on to explain that he holds on for roughly a minute when he becomes challenging. He was now known as Minuteman, she informed the others. Everyone chuckled. Sam was in our house and was a lovely person, so I felt embarrassed about him. He is a bit overweight, to be sure, but Stephanie wasn't particularly petite either. She was kind overall, but I had never heard her discuss her husband in such a way. I felt sad for Sam and was taken aback. I wanted to hear what other people had to say, so I stayed out of the room. Maggie then asserted that Harold, her husband, was entirely different. She is unhappy with his boyfriend's size, but he is fine with bonding and showed curiosity. She claimed that she hardly notices it and that she kind of wants something more now that she has 3 children. The others chuckled and inquired about its size. It's roughly 4 inches, she remarked. Then Stephanie declined. What is his size and hardness? It's hard, Maggie responded with a laugh. We ought to refer to him as Teeny Weeny. Maggie was informed that she could borrow her toy at any time after Stephanie said that everyone burst. Will you discover this small thing when it gets cold? She added. As I stood there, I was astounded to hear all of the women express something so intimate about their spouses. As they all chuckled, I felt terrible for Harold, who is a wonderful buddy. My wife's silence pleased me. I had a wife who was respected, at least. Erica's time came next. Although I didn't know him well, I thought Ollie, her husband, was a kind man. Her spouse was still needy, but she claimed she was going through menopause and wasn't interested. As a result, she assisted him when he merely pleaded to be satisfied in front of her. She claimed that she enjoyed making him act like a teenager and that she taunted and laughed at him when he became enthusiastic. He was dubbed the Blue Barrel Boy by her. I heard my wife giggle, as did all the other women. Now it was her turn. Stephanie remarked, well, ladies, come on, we're all married to older guys, and they're pretty pathetic. What should we call Jerry, Betsy? What is his nickname? I waited to hear her while remaining eerily silent. A pillar sounds fine, she remarked, laughing. Everyone chuckled. I was taken aback. My wife has never said anything like that to me in all the years that have passed. I never pushed myself on her, and occasionally I just kissed her when she was exhausted. I don't recall ever being bothersome. Is it true, or did she just say that? We only had personal encounters once every 2 weeks or fewer, as I recall, particularly during her menopausal period. She never complained about me. I simply stood there with my heart racing. I didn't know what to do because I was upset and irritated. The alleged ringleader, Stephanie, then added, we girls are bad too. We ought to start attending this new club and invite some young men to join us for dances. We can at least give the guys at the club some leeway if our guys aren't doing it for us. It was a good idea, the others replied, laughing. I was now curious about what was happening in the bar. Betsy was usually neither inebriated or ecstatic when she returned home. She usually just showered briefly and went to bed. I stayed up most of the time. I once inquired about her well-being, whether she was dancing, and if she was a skilled dancer. I have something better at home, she remarked, laughing. What bullshit. As I stood outside the door, I wondered if she was being molested, but I saw nothing. They all agreed that they ought to go out more frequently and clink their glasses. I remained motionless. They all kept drinking and laughing. Erica raised a glass to the boy with the pillar, the boy with the blue balls, the small weenie, and the Minuteman. A toast was made by all. I was repulsed. Did they always do this when they met up? We are all married, and we should be grateful that they are all wonderful fathers and breadwinners, even if they have flaws. That was Erica's final statement. I had hoped that sanity had returned, but it hasn't. Although they were good fathers, we occasionally require more. It might be enjoyable to try someone young once. After that, nobody spoke, and there was silence. We need to return to the old boys once again, Erica stated, since it was now late. Before everyone else departed, I climbed out the back door and made my way to my car. I knew I needed to cool down before I got home since I was so furious. I pulled into a park after driving around the area. To relieve my rage, I made the decision to take a short stroll. I recalled what I had heard. It surprised me that I found all of the women to be kind and sweet. Was my condition truly that bad? Despite being a little overweight and carrying a few extra pounds, I was in better physical condition than any of the women. I wasn't attractive, but I also wasn't a hottie. They were all a little heavy, and even though they were pretty, I didn't think that many young men would be chasing them. Should I share what I heard with my husband? The next time they're in the bar, should I slip out to meet them? The more I gave it some thought, the more I understood how much I loved Betsy, but I was deeply offended and saddened by the amount of contempt I heard tonight. Is she so naive as to believe it is painless? What would she think if I disparaged her in front of her friends' husbands? I headed home since it was getting close to night. Everyone was gone as I pulled into the driveway. I went into the kitchen through the rear door. Betsy was clearing the last of the mess. When I entered, she turned around and said, "Hello, sweetheart. How was your day?" I gave her the impression that I didn't recognize her. Despite my want to reprimand her, I remained silent. "What happened, honey? You appear distressed." "I'm exhausted from a terrible day. Harold and I were supposed to have supper together. What has occurred?" "Harold is doing well. It was just an awful day for me. My mind is racing." After taking a shower, I planned to read for a while before turning in for the night. Betsy came running over and gave me a hug. I was exhausted and lank. She gave me a cheek kiss. "I drew away from you and left. Are you in need of anything? How may I be of assistance?" "No, I'm all right. I'm just exhausted." After taking a shower, I immediately went to bed. She noticed me reading in our bedroom. "Tell me if I may be of any assistance, honey. I cherish you." I just gave a nod. After taking some sleeping medications, I eventually dozed off. Betsy scurried up to give me a hug, but I pretended to be asleep. She turned over and dozed off. I got up early on Saturday morning and made the decision to ride my bike. I planned to bike for approximately an hour, so I stepped outside while Betsy was sleeping. I found that riding for 30 minutes was sufficient to keep me going most of the time, but I now wanted to start increasing my endurance. Betsy was eating breakfast when I got back. I returned to the shower after I began to perspire. "I'll prepare breakfast for you, Jerry. What are you looking for?" "Amy and I are going shopping for pregnant clothing. Don't be concerned about me. I'll just have coffee and eat a bagel. Enjoy yourself." She was gone when I went down for breakfast. I was glad she was gone. I could now consider my options calmly. When I realized I needed to learn more about going to the bar, I became irate. Dan, a young man of 32, was one of my assistants and had been with me for roughly 5 years. My wife only met him once, as I recall. Perhaps he could observe her without raising any red flags. I pondered considering switching off our landline and relying solely on our cell phones. I also intended to keep an eye on the home phone. I might be able to get anything to record calls. She never kept them a secret, so I spent the whole day reading through her emails. I examined roughly 2 years' worth of activity and saw nothing unusual. She didn't delete the old letters, and I kept wondering why. I was relieved she didn't now. I heard her car pull up to the home at 5 o'clock. "They had a great day finding things for Amy," she added, swaying into the room. "Our daughter and her husband needed our assistance, which made me glad because I adore her." I just sat there nodding as Betsy spoke incoherently. She concluded by saying that she would have some of the leftovers from the gathering from the previous evening. I was pulled back to reality by this, and my anger returned. She saw that I was quiet at dinner, even though I tried not to show it. "Tell me what's bothering you, honey. I'm all right. I'm hoping that everything will be settled quickly because it's work." As I gathered the dishes and began to clean the table, she gave me a kiss. "At least I can clean, but I've long since come to the conclusion that Betsy is a far superior cook." While I washed the dishes, she sat at the table and drank some wine. "Are you happy, Betsy?" "What does it mean to be happy?" "Of course. How about you?" "Yes, but occasionally you come out as aloof. Are you and your girlfriends enjoying yourselves?" She had the opportunity to answer something along the lines of, "Yeah, I enjoy going out with my friends. Because we have hobbies and are roughly the same age, we have a great time." "Do you dance with other men when you go to listen to music?" She laughed and glanced up abruptly. "I do accept invitations to dance from time to time. I never allow them to go too close, and it's innocent." "Do you feel envious?" "Younger men. Are you ever a little anxious? I believe you're jealous, Jerry. Darling, you don't need to worry about it. 4 or 5 lovely women sitting together can draw a lot of men, which makes me inquisitive. When they ask, do you slow dance with them? What's going on, Jerry? I will never allow someone to get too near, you know. Are other girls also dancers? Will you let me know if you think any of them ever act inappropriately? I don't think any of the ladies will do anything bad, Betsy remarked, giving me an odd look. You are familiar with them all. That is not something they would ever do. I remarked to myself, I have an idea. How about inviting them and their husbands to our picnic? I think they're all busy, she responded with a simple shrug. All right, I just wanted to know when you girls will next get together. I wanted to discuss this with you, Jerry. Stephanie suggested that we all spend the next weekend at her lakefront home. The only women Stephanie encountered were wives. All of you are constantly too busy. I pivoted and gazed upon her. When would you have told me? You weren't feeling well last night, but I wanted to bring something up. When are you going to depart? Just for the 4th of July, we plan to go on Friday morning and return on Monday evening. On the 4th, we normally have a celebration. Will you be absent from the celebration? No, I will return in time to witness the fireworks. Everything else will be missed. Usually, Jim and Amy stop by to see us. Betsy noticed my disappointment as she glanced at me. I'll definitely make things right when I get home, Jerry. We gals just need a vacation sometimes. I get it. After that, I walked to my office and began to reflect. She rarely leaves, and now that I've heard the girls' comments about how much they require, I'm beginning to have serious reservations. I questioned what was actually happening. Betsy came into the office later. You're not upset with me, are you, Jerry? No, all I want is for you to tell me. You know who's coming. Teresa, Erica, Maggie, and Stephanie. She is excellent friends with Stephanie and works with her. I wanted to learn more about Teresa even though I didn't know her. Is Teresa married and is she the same age as you? She's divorced, but I believe she's around our age. That was fantastic. I don't know what's going on, but my wife wants to go away for a few days to enjoy herself with some women. Your sudden desire to spend more time with your friends is odd. Since Monday is also my day off, I was hoping we could hang out for a while. That's great, sweetie, but we can only get together at this time. I swear that before the summer is up, we can do some more. I could see my wife was looking forward to the trip as the week progressed. I was upset. I intended to give it another go and see her response. How about I come over on Friday night and head off on Monday morning, honey? We can spend some time together, but you will still have some time apart from your husbands. What the devil is wrong with you, Jerry? Let's have some girl-only time, please. You have time, but if I want to spend the weekend playing golf with the boys, you won't like it. That's because I dislike being by myself and it's too costly. Try to realize that you are behaving like a child, please, honey. Well, this was my final effort. Perhaps she is correct. Girls require solitude. The chat I overheard made me even more concerned about Betsy than I had previously been. I intended to try to learn more. While she was taking a shower, I grabbed her phone and attempted to open it. She had kept it safe. It was the first time she had ever locked her phone. I needed to think of something. I left my phone at home and took hers to work because we had nearly identical phones. I asked Dan, our IT specialist, whether he could help me access her phone. I gave him every possible password combination, and he worked on it for a while. It was open when he finally figured out the correct combination. Searching for something useful, I read through her texts. I discovered a lot of information. Dan attempted to connect my home email to her messages. He was glad to assist when I told him how much I appreciated it. In this group, Stephanie seemed to be the ringleader. They intended to visit some of the people at her cabin first. Teresa also planned the occasion. My anger increased as I read more. My beloved wife was ecstatic. Maggie was the only one who thought it was a poor idea, noting that the husbands would be upset if they found out. Stephanie simply told her that it would be enjoyable and that there would be no consequences if no one found out. My beloved wife concurred. Erica stated she couldn't wait because she was so eager. I looked through as many emails as possible. My wife asked me if I had taken her phone by mistake when I got home. Yes, I told her. Why did you take my damn phone? She replied, flushed. Oh no, you should avoid looking at it because it is private. Jerry, you're a jerk. I gave her the look of someone who had lost her mind. I knew it was your phone, but I couldn't read it because you had just locked it. You are obviously engaging in some private activities that you would prefer your husband not to witness. Betsy, what the devil is happening? Nothing. I simply dislike it when you stare at my private belongings. Have you got something to hide, Betsy? Obviously not. I had a restless night's sleep Tuesday. I made the decision to give my daughter a call to ask her if she had any information. Amy and my wife spoke virtually every day. I gave her a call and inquired as to whether her mother had informed her about her escape. Amy seemed elated as she answered yes. I inquired whether she had any information. All is well. It's all right. She simply appears a bit different. Perhaps she is so thrilled because the baby is on the way. You're right, honey. Neither of us can wait. Betsy knew I was unhappy the moment she got home. You are aware of my affection for you, honey. It's an easy getaway, and I'll be delighted to see you on Monday. I hope so, I answered with a smile. I got up early and headed to work on Thursday. I chose to look through her texts. Stephanie repeatedly assured the girls that they would have a great day, but she did not specify what they would be doing. Everything was planned by Teresa alone. I showed Dan a few of the emails when I went to speak with him again. I wanted to know if the other emails could be accessed in any way. After reading the letter, Dan asked me, "Who is Teresa?" "I'm not sure. Someone who collaborates with Stephanie." His features broke into a broad smile. "She's my sister. She recently hosted a bachelorette party for her friend's wedding. She also informed me that one of her coworkers wants a lady for some of her buddies. Teresa said she could get them one, but for what reason? She just learned from her pal that this weekend is a bachelorette party." I must have looked pale to Dan. "Don't worry, Jerry. I'll work it out." This clarified everything, and I now understood what was happening. I wanted to discover how far my wife's plan to have a female on a pole would go. Attending a private party is a very different experience than going to a strip club. I kept reading Betsy's emails and messages. Betsy said I was beginning to lose my temper. Stephanie wrote, "After this weekend, let the pillar know that you won't need him if he misbehaves, so he had best treat you nicely." I was so furious over this that I felt like hitting the wall. I quickly came up with a plan. After lunch, Amy called to let me know she was chatting with her mother. "I just need to get out," she added. Amy asked her why she would miss her family's 4th of July celebration when this weekend was so important. Betsy stated she didn't need to worry and she just needed to be with the girls. Additionally, Amy informed her that she believed I was depressed and that perhaps she ought to spend more time with me. She needed this to happen, according to her mother, and she promised to make it up to me when she got home. I made the decision to call each husband on Thursday. I started by calling Harold to see whether he had observed Maggie's odd behavior. She appeared concerned, he said. She was looking forward to the weekend, but he assumed she might simply be feeling under the weather. Dan called me back and talked to Teresa, his sister. She made touch with a girl who was performing at the party while perched on a pole. Stephanie had recruited the same employee. I asked the husbands over the phone to meet with me on Friday night, but I told them not to tell their wives about it. Ollie and Sam claimed they just wanted to unwind at home alone themselves because they didn't know me well. I then suggested to them that they might be interested in learning more about their spouse's plans. For their marriage, it was crucial. They all agreed at last. In order to find out what their wives were up to, I also advised them to peep into their emails or messages. They said that they were unable to access cell phones. At 5 o'clock on Friday morning, I got up. I went to see what Betsy had packed in her bags while she was sleeping. I found nothing out of the ordinary. I continued to check her messages and emails. Stephanie stated that she was eager to watch Teresa's action, but she would not reveal them to the others. Betsy was scheduled to depart at 8 o'clock. Even though the trip only took roughly 2 hours, they were eager to get out of there and spend as much time as possible in the sun. She was unaware that I took the day off. I heard the shower at last as I was eating breakfast. Usually, I depart about 8:30. I made the decision to leave early, noting in my note that I had an early appointment. "I hope you and your pals have a wonderful time, Betsy. I believe that you have cut yourself off from me, which is why you are sad. I apologize that I no longer bring you joy, but I want you to remain here so that we can rekindle our relationship. You always made me feel special, and I wanted to be near to you because I've been feeling so depressed lately. For more than 28 years, I have adored you. I hope the future holds nothing but joy for you. Jerry, your devoted spouse." When Stephanie texted to say she would pick her up at 8, she started to worry. Betsy said, "Stephanie, there's a problem with Jerry. I fear that unless I speak with him, I will not be able to depart. He's a big boy, Betsy, and he's most likely pouting over being left alone for the weekend. The pillar is probably just sulking. This isn't humorous, Stephanie, and I wonder if he believes something is going on. Lately, I've been mistreating him. I must call him." All right. I'll give Harold a call to see what he can discover." He departed early in the morning as well. After exchanging letters, the women came to the realization that they couldn't reach every husband. Stephanie instructed everyone to prepare by text message. "We're all spending the weekend away. No justifications. The men will be all right." I spent a few days working on the plan. The males are now in charge. Perhaps their wives were right when they stated they were elderly, obese, lusty, and lazy. Marriages can still be saved, or at least wives can be prevented from ending them. When Ollie and Sam arrived, Harold and I chatted for a while. I told everyone that's how it should be because they all were anxious. I have reason to think that our spouses may violate our wedding vows this weekend, which is why I invited you all here. Are you able to tolerate this? I told them all about how I overheard them discussing each of them and how I obtained information about what was going to happen, or at least what they were going to do, by breaking into my wife's cell phone. Harold, Ollie, and Sam were enraged. They suddenly stopped talking. I suggested my strategy. On Saturday, we will rise, head to the cabin, wait for the visitors, and observe the situation. After talking it over, we agreed not to answer any texts, calls, or emails. The women should be kept in the dark. We needed to raise their suspicions, but it would be challenging. After a late-night conversation, we decided to get together again at 9 in the morning. My night was a restless one. My wife texted me roughly 20 times as I was constantly checking my phone. She was scared at first, but as I tried to spoil her weekend with the girls, she became upset and labeled me a spoiled child. I tried to fall asleep after going to bed. I finally fell asleep. When I contacted my daughter in the morning, she informed me that her mother had called and was quite concerned. Amy explained to her that her mother wanted to escape and play with the girls, so they asked her father. Betsy ended the call. As usual, I checked our account. I typically manage the majority of the accounts. I saw that Betsy had taken out $500 for the trip. I now understood her intentions. I explained the situation to the guys and instructed them to check their accounts. After doing so, they found that every woman had taken out substantial amounts of cash. Harold, Sam, and Ollie were all furious and ashamed of the disdain each of the spouses showed them. I advised them to keep their disappointment for when we came across them, but I didn't want them to turn aggressive. We had to there by 7 o'clock and keep the girls in the dark since something was scheduled to happen at 8. Teresa updated me following my chat with Dan. In order to find a suitable female for a night out with other girls, Stephanie went to Teresa. Teresa claimed that Stephanie desired the size of his manhood. Stephanie also inquired as to whether the man would take on new tasks. They're all married to a bunch of old farts, Teresa said, and they wanted to see what a hot young man could do for 4 women. I started to understand after Teresa informed me about this. Stephanie intimated that it would be intimate and that everyone would like it, but Teresa told me that the others were unaware. We were still talking when the men spewed fire. We were fortunate enough to prevent it, but it appeared that we would not have a bright future with our wives. While we were near, I texted Teresa to check on the readiness of everything. After a few minutes, she gave me another call. Teresa, we really appreciate your assistance when she went outside. Our eyes have been opened by you, and perhaps it will save a couple of marriages. I don't know Jerry, I had a cheating worthless spouse. Dan brought up your predicament and discovered that I was seeing Stephanie, so I was glad to assist her in telling the others that a stripper was on the way. Jerry, I believe your wife is at Stephanie's mercy and lets her convince her into doing things she wouldn't ordinarily do. I'm very interested in the truth, especially how my wife responded. I could tell Teresa didn't want to tell me, but she did. Teresa, please be honest with me. Did someone go to the bar and confess to doing something? They claimed that several guys kissed them and rubbed their hands over them, but none seemed to like it. Regarding your wife, she claimed that one man had taken her hand and placed it on his hard-on, describing it as being extremely large. After that, she took her hand off of it and did nothing else. I understand. They are aware of what is going to occur. Stephanie advised them to wait until everyone could see and feel the large man's instrument in action if they liked it. He will amuse us all, and perhaps we might assist him in doing so. They assume I'm speaking to a worker, so I have to leave. Her actions and words weren't all that horrible. I'm hoping you see that Stephanie is at fault. Teresa, thank you. We would all be naive fools without you. Goodbye. They became irate when I told them what she had said. We were near the cottage already. As the representative, I was going to inform the spouses of our decision when we came to a halt. We would arrive in 10 minutes, I texted Teresa. All right, they're just wrapping up dinner, she replied. The time was 7:30 p.m. The hut is perched on a little hill with a lovely lake view. According to Sam, his family has owned it for 3 generations. The view was breathtaking, and the cabin was rustic yet pleasant. A half-mile separated us from the closest neighbor. After walking a few hundred yards down the gravel road, we came to a standstill. We exited and made our way to the cottage. We could hear women conversing. They must have been gazing out over the lake from the cabin's back porch. We all entered once Sam opened the front door. We had not yet been noticed by the women. They were conversing and drinking wine. The talk came to a halt when Sam unlocked the back door. The spouses all went pale. They all stood in awe as Sam said, hello, and grinned. Stephanie finally raised her voice. What on earth are you doing here, Sam? It's a weekend for girls. We had a destination in mind. Come inside the house before you leave. Ladies, I want you to meet my pals. Let me present you to Pillar Boy, Blue Ball Boy, Tiny Weenie Boy, and Minute Man, of course. Is that correct? He turned to his wife and inquired. It was great that Stephanie was unable to speak. Then I spoke. Please take a seat and unwind. We have to talk about something. Betsy opened her mouth to speak, but I interrupted her. No, she sobbed while sitting down. Erica suffered with PTSD, while Maggie appeared to have seen a ghost. Before you speak, we would like to talk about something. Wow, you must be Teresa, I responded, turning to face Teresa. You are amazing. According to my wife, you and she are about the same age. What is your age? I'm 34, Teresa responded, pretending to be surprised. My wife is obviously lying or blind, isn't she, Han? I gave a wink. Since it was around 7, the women appeared really anxious. 50 and they checked their watches, thinking a worker was on the way. Let's all go somewhere to eat, remarked Erica, who had finally found her voice. I chuckled. Well done, Erica. The worker should arrive any moment, in my opinion. You know, the one you've all been waiting for, the one with the large tool. Maggie was already crying when my wife broke down. Harold was at his breaking point. You're a fallen woman, Maggie. How could you talk about my size and make fun of me in front of your friends? I will purchase a baseball bat for you, which will contribute to your happiness. Next was Ollie. You are truly unique, Erica. After all these years of love, all I see in you now is betrayal. I appreciate you telling everyone how much I need you. I want more than just a partner. I desire you. Not anymore, that is. You describe me as a smiling, obedient weakling. That is, you. Stephanie, you're disgusting, Sam continued. The majority of these women's behaviors were brought on by problems with your own self-esteem. Almost everything that occurred was caused by you. I believed that I loved you, but you prevented it. You can carry on living your life as an elderly, depressed woman seeking men of larger sizes after our divorce. To be honest, if you become any bigger, they should attach ropes to you so you may march in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. By the way, you really look enormous in those jeans in 5th place. My dear Betsy, you also managed to burn bridges behind you, I added at the end. You purposefully injured me and lied to me for amusement. When I have a pillar in the future, you won't find me so repulsive because you won't be able to see, feel, or touch it. I apologize for finding you attractive and loving you for 28 years. You might feel attracted to someone when you return to the pub. You seem to enjoy it. There will not be a girl on a pool, by the way. As soon as we learned about that, we stopped it. We did find out, but don't worry about how. I hope you can find another place to live with the $500 you took out of our account, honey, or you can go find a girl on a pole. I've had enough, then. Have a happy life. The women tried to explain something to me as they followed us out onto the street, but I didn't hear them. We deflated 2 of Stephanie's car's tires before we left. Since it being a holiday weekend, she wouldn't be able to locate someone to fix it until tomorrow or later. While we were chatting with our wives, Teresa had already departed. All of us went back home. My wife continued to email and call. She expressed her sincere apologies in every mail. Everything was a big joke. She stated, "Jerry, I'm very sorry," in one of the voice messages I heard, but all the women were kidding. We acknowledged that this was disrespectful. No one else would ever know who I was. I should have told you about it sooner, but it was just for your amusement. I will never be able to replace you, even if I love you so deeply. I didn't respond. I enjoyed a pleasant lunch with my daughter Amy at her home. I informed her that I don't trust her and that her mother had hired someone to amuse them. The fact that her mother did this startled and disturbed her. Did you like the worker? Her mother questioned her when she called. It was a joke, according to her mother, and she should never discuss it. On July 4th, our lovely wives were allowed to go back home. I knew Jim and Amy already. Betsy finally came to join us. I sincerely apologize for what I did, Jim, Amy, and Jerry. Please know that I adore you and will do everything in my ability to make things better for us. I'm really disappointed, and I can't believe you think this is acceptable, Amy said to her mother. Jim remarked, "Really, I haven't seen a girl dancing on poles since I was in college. Maybe you ought to explain this to me. I was unaware of my wife's condition. Before I met you, Jim, we were all young girls, not elderly women like my mother." After crying, Betsy left for home. When I arrived home following the fireworks, Betsy had evidently gone to bed since she was so exhausted. I transferred my clothes into Amy's former room, so I was okay with this. I left the room before Betsy did, as I had to go for work the following morning. How did it go? Dan asked at the workplace. Although it was challenging, I'm happy that we were able to stop additional harm. Do you think you can save your marriage? I replied, I'm not sure, but I hope so. I still adore that. In fact, Betsy sent me a letter asking when I would be home and offering to prepare dinner for me. I told her that we really needed to discuss. Arrive home at your regular hour. Everything smelt good when I walked inside the house. She approached me and apologized for everything, saying, I missed you. Can we discuss this after supper? Of course. The food was good, but the dinner was quiet. Her cooking is amazing. After everything was finished, she brought wine and cake and asked if she might enter the living room. I assumed she was attempting to attract the entire court press to come here. I apologize about the weekend, Jerry. We had no plans to do anything with the girl at all. It wasn't even known to me until we got there. When did you learn of this, Betsy? Why didn't you tell Stephanie that this was wrong, or at least refuse? I considered it, but we all felt she was in control because she organized everything and it was her cabin. Tell me more about your bar-going experiences as well. To what extent have you been groped and how many male pals have you already groped? No, I didn't feel this and I wasn't grabbed. Didn't take place. A guy put your hand on his partner and you remarked he was massive, according to one of your pals. It's untrue. I never felt it or played with any guys, even though he might have touched me by accident. Over the past 2 weeks, I've been thinking a lot, and I'm not happy. As you are aware, you showed no concern when I was harmed, and your rudeness is abhorrent. Your discussions seem to be about their clients rather than the men you are meant to adore. From where did this originate? Do you criticize us all the time? Honey, we just say different things, and this is girl speak. Additionally, the majority of them are adorned. We were drinking and acting foolishly, even though I realize it sounded impolite. If we husbands discussed personal matters and made fun of you women, how would you feel? Are any of you going to be labeled fat? You know that you'll be angry. This was disrespectful and unprofessional. Jerry, I'm very sorry. We shouldn't have organized a girls' weekend or done this, it was inappropriate. I have no idea why Stephanie felt the need to do this. I understand why. She persuaded you all to respect her spouse, even though she doesn't. It's not true, Jerry. You are the greatest person I have ever loved. Please, I swear to make things right, and I will. You are the most important person in my life. All right, let's see. You must first prove it to me, though. I shifted everything into Amy's former room. It's still quite comfortable. See a psychologist, please. Besides, you won't be bothered by my pillar. I really didn't realize how miserable you were and how awful our marriage was. I adore you, and I'm curious as to where you've lost regard for me. You portray me as a nasty, repulsive, and lusty old man. Honey, am I really so awful? No, you're not repulsive, and I love you. I foolishly assumed you were always there for me. I was mistaken. I don't believe I require therapy. This is how we should put it. I'm concerned about Stephanie's impact on all of you women since you allowed her to dictate to you. For this reason, I believe that counseling is essential. Startled, she promised to comply with my request. She obviously disagreed with me, but I thought she needed it. She needed to find someone to help her, but I assured her that if it would help, I would accompany her. On one point, all of the spouses agreed that the ladies were correct. It was time for us to get fit. We relentlessly worked on ourselves in the gym. As if this matters to a 56-year-old man, I felt better and got stronger, and my daughter said I looked good today. I assumed that this was the case, with one marriage nearly complete and two in the counseling stage. The divorce of Stephanie and Sam is imminent. After leaving, Stephanie moved to another state to live with her sister. Sam began dating, but he was a little depressed. Stephanie was unimportant to anyone. After receiving treatment, Erica and Ollie are attempting to return to their pre-intervention state. Ollie has grown more forceful, and Erica is more concerned about her spouse. He wants to make absolutely certain that no one believes he is obedient. I believe they will be successful. She was the only one who believed that what they were proposing would cause issues, along with Harold. She expresses to everyone how much she values her husband. She informs everyone that he is, in fact, the most attractive lover since Casanova. Harold, my best buddy, seems to have moved past his humiliation. Naturally, this leaves me. Betsy is currently receiving counseling, and we still reside in the same home. Although we are legally married, I've found a new love. Brittany, my lovely grandchild. Betsy does appear regretful at times, but who can tell? Amy requests that I give her mother another chance. There's been some intimacy between Betsy and myself lately. It's all right to be intimate, but I'd like to experience the passion once more. She claims to genuinely love and need me. Time will tell, though. I am beginning to improve my self-esteem. After I shared my tale with some of the women I meet at the gym, they seemed a little more interested in me. Watch and see. In order to prevent your second half from cheating on you, please subscribe to our channel. And since this story is nothing in comparison to the following, feel free to listen to it. Subs don't even consider listening to the next one if you're younger than 18. What surprised you about today's story? Post a comment. I'll see you in the upcoming video.